Let's see. There we go. Hopefully the audio is good. So just a quick little stream to just to give an idea, some of the different things you can do, some basic flight stuff, just some things to get a completely new player into it. Right? Yeah. So aside from the options, which I assume most people would go straight to, I'm going to start with more the flying. So if you're looking to actually train, do the flight training. It's not bad, but it's going to set you back for a bit. So there's going to be two types of flying types they're going to teach you about, is VFR and IFR. So VFR is just basically like you radio towers are like, yeah, I want to do an VFR flight, and basically you're just flying around visually. There's no rhyme or reason. You're just going to go wherever you feel like, right? IFR is when you have a flight plan and you're registering it with the air traffic controller, and you're basically saying like, hey, I'm going, from here to this location. Here's my flight plan, right? And it tells you all the different waypoints. So I'm going to be doing IFRs today. But if you're looking to do flying, the A320neo has got to be one of the easiest to fly. There's a few good ones, but the jetliners are really cool. I will say that. Ignore this monster. So out of, let's see, jets. Airliners, there we go. So, Fenix is an actual purchased add-on. If you're looking, at some point you're going to hear people talking about fly-by-wire or Fenix or DMDG or something. I think there's or FMDG or something. There's a couple big ones out there, but Fenix is an interesting one. It'll give you like a real A320. It changes the sounds. It gives you like basically a fully working flight computer. Whereas if you go into the one that comes with the game, this one, it's a great plane to start with, right? And if you're not going to be doing the FMC, the difference between these two, like, definitely go with this one. This is way easier to fly. This thing is not forgiving, right? Because like in most of these planes, what you're going to find is a lot of the buttons don't work, or in some cases they work but they don't do anything. With the Fenix, there's a whole bunch of buttons that do something, right? It's like, or they're clickable, and it's hard to know, right? In terms of the flight computer, all of these guys are pretty good. Well, I mean, this is the Antonov 225. This thing it's more analog, like the Concorde is, right? The Concorde's a nice one to check out, but it's tricky to fly, and the Concorde's very old. But unfortunately, this is a paid add-on as well. So this is paid, this is paid, this is paid. These should all be with it. I haven't flown that one before. I started flying the 320neo just because the tutorial at the beginning, it uses a 320neo. And if you go back, there's actually an activity that you can purchase that'll give you 320neo experience, and it'll tell you, it's like a real pilot giving you an audio course, and it's pretty cool. Let's see if I can find it. It's under activities, Top Gun. That is fun. Custom content. Yeah. So the FS Academy jetliner. This guy's going to teach you A320neo, and He's going to use the one in the game, although it'll work with the Fenix too. But he's going to teach you, like, okay, here's the startup, here's the checklist. It's an excellent purchase. I think it's only about $20, $30. So it's, well, that's Canadian, so probably around $20 US. But this is an excellent thing, right? They teach you about rejected takeoff, right? They run you through jail, like the rejected takeoff. Essentially, like there's a dial in here. I think it's down here where you can set the auto speed and stuff, but there's like a little notch or for the auto brakes and stuff. But there's a special mode where if you decide to abort or cancel your takeoff, as long as you're not going past V1 speeds, but he'll teach you what V1, V2, VR, and all that stuff are. But if you're not going too fast, it'll basically slam on the brakes for you and stuff. He'll teach you about like relighting the engines. He'll go through everything. It's an excellent course. This taught me a lot of stuff that was kind of missing from the base game. And the cool thing is, once you get into these planes, they're not all, I don't want to say they're all the same, but they're all very similar, right? The 747, the 747-8, this is a great plane. This is super nice. Although I like the 787-10, the Dreamliner. I just like this one. It's got more engines, right? This one's super cool. But they're a little bit different. These guys are a little bit different than the Neo. With the Neo, you set the altitude and you right-click the knob, or I think it's a middle click, actually. Because essentially the knobs have like dual function, where you can either push them or pull them, right? In addition to dialing them. And if you push them or pull them, you either push to give control to the computer or pull to give control to the human. So think of it that way, right? So when I push it in, I'm saying like, hey, go to automatic heading mode. If I pull it, I'm saying I want to control the heading that I have set on the dial, right? So it's an interesting little plane. Whereas these guys, and it might even be this one too, and this one, I haven't tried this one yet, but like with these guys, they have an FLC button instead, right? So it's a flight level change. So you dial in your altitude like 10,000, and then you hit the FLC button, and as long as autopilot's on, it'll just away it goes, right? And in fact, I guess we could go with, I kind of want to go with the Neo, just because it's such a, it's like the most user-friendly plane that you can get, I think. It's a very nice plane. It's a very great beginner plane. So let's see what we got here. I just like these ones because they look cool. Let's do Dreamliner. So when you hit your airplane selection, you're going to go to liveries. If you want to change something to like KLM, there we go. Right. So weights and balances. If you know how much fuel you're going to use, you would want to set it here in advance, right? Just be careful about your center of gravity, right? You don't want to go out of spec, right? Now you got to be careful with fuel. Like it gets real interesting, especially with something like the Concorde, right? Because the Concorde actually has ballast that it's crazy. You actually take the weight from the front of the plane. There's fuel in the front, and then there's fuel in the back. So you got tanks 9 and 10 in the front, and tank 11 in the back, and then you get a bunch of tanks in the body. So during takeoff, you actually got to weight. There's switches and dials and inlets and stuff. You actually weight the fuel to the back of the plane, and when you're done during flight, you got to weight it back to the forward, right? That's super cool. That, and it does Mach 2. Like, how cool is that? Okay, so in terms of basics, if you did want failures and challenges, you can turn them on here, but I haven't played with that yet. The other thing, go to customization, give yourself a call sign. So there's these things called ICAO codes, ICAO, and essentially, like if you look up like airports and stuff like that, excuse me, the ICAO code is It's the thing they give me, but the airplanes, I'm not sure if they are under ICAO or ICO. Like, there's a couple different standards, and I really don't know them. But ACA is Air Canada, for example. So you can find the wiki page. So if you pick a particular airline that you're fond of, go find their code, plug it into your call sign, give yourself a tail number, and give yourself a flight number. So in this case, I probably should just go with that. And this is the number that the air traffic control will refer to you as. Right? And you can do some wear and tear. But let's go with this for now. So now in terms of online play, you can go all players or live players. You can turn on the AI or do live traffic. You can do live weather, right? If you go live players, you have to use live weather. If you just turn on all players, you can go like a preset. So I can come over here and I can say, okay, I want it to be a daytime flight just so I can see. Right, so let's, in the background, it's just the globe is changing. It's so easy. So let's stay like 7 in the morning. Right, I'm going to go with clear skies. Well, maybe some rain. There we go. Let's do it. I like it. Okay, so then you click that. Right? You can adjust the time here, right? So decide what time you want it to be. So let's put the time over here. You can adjust it when you're in the game too, so I wouldn't worry too much. So the way it works is you find a place where you want to take off from. So if you go select departure and you know the code, right? So if I go KORD, I wanted to try this. This is one of the ones that comes with the deluxe edition. Just to see, I'm kind of curious. It's supposed to be a really good airport. So when you punch in the name from the list here, it's going to zoom you in. And then you want to pick your destination, or you can zoom out, find a nearby airfield that can handle your plane. Maybe zoom out a little bit more. So where am I? Chicago O'Hare. Let me go to Toronto. So here's Pearson. So I left click, and I want to say this is my arrival, right? So now this is going to give me a straight VFR, right? We don't want VFR. You want, trust me, if you want to do the automatic stuff, you want to go to the IFRs, and we pick high altitude or low altitude. So in this case, I'm going to say high altitude, right? VOR is if you're going by the radio beacon. So all over the place, there's these radio beacons, and I can show you kind of a map of them when I get into the game and I load an add-on called Navigraph. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to say high altitude. Now, once we have a runway picked out, right, and in the real world, you wouldn't necessarily be picking your own runway. It'd probably be assigned to you, right? Especially if you use something like VATSIM, which is like a real live, like pilots doing audio and stuff. Once you have a runway picked out, so in this case, we're on 28 right. That's such a small thing. Okay, so in this case, if I click on this plane here, or this, what do you call it, tile, so I can see it's going to pick an automatic approach, and right now it's kind of thinking, well, runway 23. So if I click here, there's different types of approaches. There's RNAV, which they're essentially like GPS, right? And it's totally satellite based. So when RNAV goes, like this sucker will land you right to the ground, right, on its own. ILS is using like these radio towers that are shooting beams of radio waves at you, and they're essentially, your plane is able to detect when you're on the right path, right? And it can take you right down to like 100 feet or two, but generally you're going to turn it off when you land, right? And the problem with ILS is it can be obstructed from things, right? So, and different airports will have different charts that give you warnings about potential issues, like trains that go by might occasionally obstruct ILS. So ILS is fine. In the video game, you're not going to have stuff like that, right? But RNAV, just understand RNAV is just like you're basically going satellite, and it doesn't matter what the visibility is. RNAV will land the thing itself. There's just some different procedures depending on whether you're doing RNAV or ILS. But ILS, Instrument Landing System, it's going to be just fine. So in this case, we're going to do 23, right? So essentially, it's here. We're going to come around. There we go. Now, these are the different stars, right? The standard arrivals. And then over here, we have departures, which for some reason this one isn't listing anything, and it might be because it's a custom airport. I don't know. Usually there'll be, like this list here, all of these different ways. Like you can tweak these however you want. Unfortunately, this UI is a little flaky sometimes, but if I don't like this NACBOS, I can change to this one, right? And it'll change the path that I'm coming in. Essentially, it'll change the approach, right? So you're still landing on this runway. It's just how you're getting there is going to change. So you pick one that works for you, right? So now the trick to doing flight sim is if you pick a runway, you're going to start on the runway with the engines running, right? Which kind of, it's unfortunate. So, oh, hold on. So if I click on this and click, hold on, gotta click off of it. No, it's so funky sometimes. Oh, hey, that's one of the live players. Oh, okay. So if you have this menu drop down, the interaction is a little funky. Okay. So if we zoom into the details here, so let's say you want to take runway 28 right? And I'm going to take off this way, and then essentially it wants me to just immediately turn and go direct, right? Well, if I wanted to, I could say I want to start at gate M12 here. So if that's where I'm heading, I might as well start here so I don't have to taxi halfway across the planet, right? Because taxiing in this game can take a long time. And the ATC, well, you'll see when you get into it. You've probably already seen it by now if you've played the game, right? So I'm going to say departure, right? So gate M12. Now will let me pick. No, it doesn't have. Wow. Okay, so this might just be a bug because it's like one of those custom airports. Whoever did the airport might not have put any departures in. I don't know. Okay, so let's zoom to details. Okay, so essentially if you start at a parking spot or a gate and not on the runway, you're going to start with the engines off, cold and dark they call it, right? Which is what you want, really. It's the funnest. If you're just looking to try because you're crashing a lot, just start on the runway and you should be good to go, right? So when you just pick like an actual runway to leaf run, so if I pick like 28C or 10 left or whatever, right, and check the distances, it's just going to start me with the engines ready to go. So in this case, I'm going to skip that, right? So we're going to start here. We're going to ask for clearance. I'm going to deal with the fact that it's sending me direct. It's not a huge deal, right? Because I'm probably going to get up here before I even turn on autopilot and then circle back around. So it's not a huge deal. These autopilot systems are really good, trust me. So we're going to hit fly. We're going to get in. And then I'm going to show you the checklist. So we're going to start this guy up. We're going to taxi to the runway. We're going to get the clearance. We're going to have fun. That is a good plane. The Citation, longitude specifically. That jet is, oh, it's got like a fully loaded Garmin with all the trimmings. Wow, they weren't kidding about the rain. Okay, so when I first hit fly here, it's going to be a little jumpy and I'm going to be in this seat because I've got the head tracking on but I'll turn that off. The Flying Dutchman. Okay, so you see the head tracking's on. It's put me back. So when I first start with the Toby tracker, I have to reset once. It puts me in the window, and then I reset again, and then it's cool. So this is an interesting plane because it's the only one that's got like a visor. So I'm going to turn off that for a sec. So when ATC comes up, as soon as we hit power, ATC is going to come on. And one of the things you want to do here is go to this flight assistant. And if you don't have some of these icons, you can go to settings and you can pick which ones you want on or off, right? So in my case, I also have SimBrief and the Navigraph. So this is an add-on. You can just drag it into the community folder once you grab it. So in this case, it's like, oh, hey, I see you've got a flight plan. You want me to load that? Because otherwise it has the last plan it had. So I'll say yes. Oh, there we go. And then we can see the different stuff going on. But if I look at like the VFRs and the IFRs, remember I was telling you about like there's these radio beacons and stuff. This is the map of them, right? And essentially they have Morse code assigned to them. They have a channel, like a radio channel. And when you tune into it, they can lock onto it and they know which angle they're coming into it at, right? So they know like, oh, I'm coming at it from like, 0 degrees, or I'm coming at it from 90 degrees, or like your headings, right? Your course. So it's really cool. So essentially when you say VOR to VOR, what you're doing is you're coming in at like, 270 degrees, and then you're exiting at like 45 to the next one, right? And then when you get to this one, you're exiting at like, I don't know, maybe like, what's a good number? Like, I don't know, 15 degrees. There we go. Down, and essentially you're going VOR to VOR, right? And essentially you're dialing in the radio frequencies, these things. Like if you fly in like a prop plane, the Cessna in the tutorial, that's what they're going to teach you, right? But we're not doing those. So we're doing high VFR high. So essentially these are like sky highways, right? So this is an airway, right? Things that start with a number and like a single letter and then have a number are considered an airway. So you see this is J. Well, it's hard to see because the font doesn't scale, but there's waypoints and then there's airways. So if it's just a bunch of letters, it's going to be like a waypoint. If it's a letter and like followed by some numbers, that's going to be an airway. And it's going to be important later when you start getting into the flight computer, because they're going to say, if they say DCT, they mean direct to, and then they'll say tubes, and then they'll say via airway J547 go to Cubs, right? So you're going to have to know that, and knowing that piece of information now is going to save you a headache later. So I'm going to minimize this or even close this for now. And we're going to go through the fun stuff. So we're going to do the start of this guy. We're going to go through here and we're going to do the checklist. So almost every plane has a checklist, right? Some of the paid ones have massive checklists with like literally 40, 50, 100 items per page. You can auto-complete them. You can do eval, right? So I can show you here. If you don't know what something is, you click on it and you hit the look icon. In some models, they'll actually zoom you to it. In other ones, they'll just show you this. You're like, oh, hey, it's pointing. And you'll actually have to zoom around and scroll around and stuff. So it's a little awkward, right? If you click it a second time, it disappears. And then you click it again, it'll go back. So just keep clicking it. So essentially what they're saying is, okay, in order to start this plane, we have to follow this checklist, right? So this is table of contents. So there's before starting the engine, there's actually starting the engine, and then there's after. And some of them will have climb, descent, approach, turning off the system, right? It just depends on the plane. So they're all going to be different, unfortunately. But they're usually going to give you enough to get going, right? So now what I wanted to do earlier is I said I want to turn off air traffic control. So you see this AI radio communications? If you turn this on, your virtual co-pilot, which will appear in the seat beside you, right? Unless you turned it off, I think. He's going to start talking to ATC. And he might start doing stuff like getting clearances and stuff before you want to. So what I usually do is I turn it off. until I'm ready for him to take over. Because when you're flying, essentially flying is basically tuning the knobs on the plane, and it's answering ATC. And every minute and a half, they're going to ask you to like, oh, hey, we're going to transfer you to the next, like Toronto Center or something, or Kennedy Station or something. They're just going to keep bouncing you from radio frequency to radio frequency, right? That's a great time to turn on the ATC, right? Just acknowledging stuff, because when you're in the middle of trying to take off and get your autopilot turned on and get your altitude dialed in and stuff, you want the ATC, right? But meanwhile, what ends up happening is there are times when the ATC AI is just gonna, like, as soon as you turn it on, he's gonna immediately ask for clearance for the ILS flight plan that we are, the IFR flight plan that we had, and that clearance is going to tell you the altitude we got to go to, what radio frequency to be on. He's going to tell you to contact ground when you're ready for taxi and stuff, right? So he's going to give you all the stuff. But if you're not ready for it, it sucks, because the AI is going to do it, right? So turn the AI off first, right, from your flight assistants, and just get the plane going, right? So if you got an Xbox controller, it's the left menu button. It's going to zoom us out. Wow, this is going to be fun. Wow, it does look pretty good, eh? That's pretty cool. So these are probably real people flying. I just don't have the name tags turned on. But you can drive through them. Like, you don't have to worry if there's someone parked and idle or AFK or something. Don't worry about it. So in this case, was it Control 9 is where I want to go, and then Control 5, and then look up. I'm going to be hitting these two guys for the engines to turn them on, and then Control 3 to look at the status. So Control 9, Control 5, Control 3. It's going to vary per plane, but the Control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, those are going to be your different view modes, right? And there's that reverse takeoff I was talking about earlier. So unfortunately, as soon as you hit the brake, it auto dials back, right? It's a automated thing. But when we land, we'll be turning this on based on how wet the runway is. So anyway. So first things first, Control 9 or hit the thing, battery switch, right? So I can just hit eval if I have this on, right? Don't hit the autocomplete, but just hit eval.
Battery switch on.
Okay.
External power.
So you noticed immediately as soon as I turned on the power, ATC lit up here, right? So when I'm ready, I'm gonna hit this, or I can either hit just number 2 on my keyboard, or I can click it, right? If I would have had the AI on, he would immediately start going through and asking for stuff and changing channels for you, right? If you have the AI off, you have to do the channels yourself, or I mean, you don't have to. I can just click, 135.4, right? And if we look at the actual, Control 5, this is where we start getting into the radio stuff, right? So VHF. So essentially there's an active and a standby. So he would want me to go to 135.4. So ATIS is the weather station, basically. So if we wanted to, we could check that out right now. So we could go like 135.4. And then we could put it into the standby, right? And when we're ready to use it, we just switch it with the active. And then there's the ATIS. On something like that sim, you would actually hear like a robot voice or a person doing a recording, right? So they're going to tell us the important thing here is the altimeter, 29.92. That's standard, actually. So that's an important number to remember. Or if you're going by QNH, it's like a different, it's like metric versus imperial, right? If you're going by QNH, then it's 1013, 1013. But for the most part, you're going to be worried about 29.92. In North America, there's a transition height that we get to, or an altitude. Once you get past 18,000 in North America, and I think in all other places in the world, I think it's like 8,000. They switch from the local the pressure, to 29.92 as the standard, or again, if you're going by the other system, it's 1013, right? But once, essentially, the idea is that the pressure is going to put you at a different altitude if it's different from another plane. So if I'm on a collision course with another plane, I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm at 5,000 feet. He's at 4,000 feet, and there's supposed to be a 1,000-foot barrier. If I've got the wrong pressure set, we might actually be at the same altitude, right? But so the idea is that we both have to have the number from ATIS, right? And what they're going to do is they're going to tell you. But the easy thing, you just hit the B key on your keyboard, and it will automatically set. In this case, this is the barometric pressure, right? So I can see right here, I'm already at 29.92. But if I adjust this, see how the altitude changes? So you might see 30.14, right? But if I hit the B key, right there, you can see it goes right back to 29.92. So if you want to save yourself the headache, just hit the B button. That will always set the pressure to what it needs to be. And it'll even pop up a tip once in a while to remind you, like, hey, you're wrong. And then once we transition, we go to standard. So I just click this, and it'll say standard. In some planes, they don't change it to the word standard. They just say 29.92 because that is standard. So it just happened to be that I'm standard where we are, right? So now, in terms of getting back to where we were, let's do our startup. So now a plane has a built-in system called an APU, right? And if you've ever watched a movie like Sully or something, you'd be like, I'm turning on the APU. What it is, it's like a power generator in the back of the plane. So if we go outside, it's so loud. Right there. Sorry, it's a little loud. Turn down my volume a bit. So the APU at the back of the plane is what we use to start up. But if we have external power, essentially depending on the airport, and depending on ground surfaces here, so if we click ground surfaces, we tune into the top one. We can request fuel supply, power. They're just artificial. They don't do anything for real, right? But watch this. So if I want to connect the jetway, now normally this would speak, but I turned down the volume. That's our little pushback tug. There's the power station, power truck, right? So I can ask for power. It's always available if you're near the airport, it seems. So it's you're just doing it for effect, right? And we can say do the baggage service, do the catering service at the back. It'll automatically end, or you can end it early, right? Oh, someone spawned in ready to take off. Okay. And we're not going to do fuel supply, but if you want to and you need to, like if you're in a flight and you're running low, you can literally do this live. Right? Just make sure your takeoff weight isn't crazy, right? So you can hit the end key, so you know, page down, page up, home end. So if you hit the end key, it'll go between inside and outside. The F key will reset your view. Right, so end, F key, end, and if I'm looking in another direction, and F key will reset, right? So we'll go back up here. So external power, if we didn't have the APU on, right now we would be running everything off the batteries. There's not enough juice in the batteries to start the plane, but technically Flight Sim might let you, depending on the model, right? The way some of these people code the engines, they're realistic, some of them are less realistic, right? So, you know, some engines will overheat. So over here, just keep an eye. We're looking for ACA 77. That's when he's talking to me. So external on if available, again, at our discretion. I'm going to skip the on right, I'm going to go to APU. So I'm just going to... no, it's going to autocomplete. Let me do this one. So...
APU selector.
So first
Start,
click
then
at the
on.
start, and then it just
APU
automatically
gen
goes
switches.
back to start or on. So now we're waiting for the APU to power up here. And if you listen closely, you hear that winding up, that revving up. That's not the engine, that's the APU starting up. So essentially this thing's got like a jet engine in the back of the plane. And if we look at the fuel, call me a liar. Once this kicks in, hold on, let's go back up. Eventually this, depending on the plane maybe, but generally as soon as we kick this in,
On when APU available. Fuel pumps.
they don't show it on this one. On some planes, like the APU will start sucking back fuel. And I could have swore it was usually this one, but we're just going to pretend it is. So, next step, turn on all the fuel pumps.
On. Beacon.
Okay, so as soon as you got like stuff happening, you're supposed to
On.
turn on the beacon just so the ground crew is aware that, you know, like, stay away from stuff. So in our case, you don't turn on the taxi lights or the strobes. They're like light. They're like, you know, camera flashes, right? You don't turn these guys off until you're like taking off. Taking taxi lights when you're driving there, you turn on the runway lights to get some more vision. And anytime you're under 10,000 feet, you got to have landing lights on. Once you're above 10,000 feet, you turn them off. That's the only like universal rule. The only other universal rule is under 10,000 feet, you can't go past 250 knots. Above 10,000 feet, you go as fast as you want, depending on air traffic control. So we're going to turn on the seatbelt signs, just because. We're going to turn on, we're not going to turn on that. We're going to turn on the logo and the wing lights and the nav lights. There we go. So we're going to ask for a jetway disconnect and power supply end. So now we're going to go to the next page. So this is where you would call up and say like O'Hare ground, ACA, you know, Air Canada 77 Heavy, requesting pushback and start, right? Well, actually not even. We would go back to clearance first and ask for our clearance. So ask for permission to leave. Right, say clear as file, take off runway 28 right, climb and maintain 5,000 feet. Departure frequency is 128.2, squawk 0537. So we now, because we don't have ATC on, we have to acknowledge these, right? So we asked for permission to do our flight plan. So now we can actually start doing our takeoff, right? Or starting our engines, I should say. So in this case, it's like make sure the flight levers are
Thrust
idle.
levers.
So
Idle.
if you're using a controller or
Right
keyboard,
engine
they're
start
going to be
/ignition
ready to go.
switch.
Okay, so essentially what we do is we turn this to normal, right? And then, or from normal to start, sorry, and then it's going to take us down. We're going to adjust the gas. But before we do that, you're technically supposed to do your pushback, right? But before we even do that, what I like to do, and you'll see a lot of people do this, they take that 5,000 and they pre-enter it into the computer. So on this plane, there's two dials. The bottom one is whether I'm talking hundreds or thousands of units, right? So if he says 5,400, right, you could dial in specifically 54. It's like kidding. Okay. So now in terms of the panel here, so you get your pressure here. This is our auto throttle. Keep it on, right? It's not active until the autopilot's going, right? But basically in flying these planes, these big jetliners or even just any kind of jet, And some of the prop planes too, depending on the autopilot system and what kind of Garmin devices they have. It's basically a matter of setting the speed, the heading, and the altitude. And then this is how fast we want to go up or down, or we just let the computer handle it, which is what we're going to do. So the other thing he gave us, you see, he gave us a squawk code, so 0537. So the ATC would normally do this, but in our case, we have to do it ourselves, right? So in this particular plane, the transponder is in the flight computer. A lot of times you'll see just an old-fashioned like 4-digit display. That's all you're looking for, is a 4-digit display, because that's going to be, then there's going to be a transponder knob somewhere. So 0537, so we type in 0537, right? And then we put it in there. It looks like it's already there. And then we turn on. Oh, it's already on. Okay, so in some planes they'll be on standby. A lot of the times this stuff's already just on, right? If you're on VATSIM, you wouldn't be putting it to on or C mode until you're like ready to take off and stuff, right? But essentially, this is going to tell them your transponder number and what altitude you're flying at. And if they ever ask you to ident, if you hold down left, you'll see the different options. So it'll say like, hey, right click does push to identify. In some cases, it'll also show you like if you were to do middle mouse, it's this, right? So in this case, if I were to right click this, I would identify to the air traffic control. So they'll ask you sometimes like, okay, you know, ACA 1777 squawk 1234, you know, can you identify for me or whatever, right? That's just them verifying that it's you, so they can essentially see you on the on their little radar device, I guess. Okay, so request taxi. We're almost ready. So now we want to do ground services and request pushback, and then release the brake. Now if we look outside, that little tug's going to start pushing us back. So essentially you want to go left or right or left, depending which runway you're going. I don't even know what the runway I'm heading is. I think it's over here. So I'm going to try to push back, steer to the left. What's that? Normally they'd be like starting the engines and stuff right now. And if you had if you had the AI voices turned up, you would actually be hearing like computer or like text to speech voices. They're not bad. They go over the internet, so we're actually sending it to Microsoft, I would imagine, or the Sobo or whoever is in charge of that stuff. Yeah, just gonna stop it there. So you can go reverse thrust back up, but you generally wouldn't do that in real life, from what I understand, just because the reverse thrust could take like lethal objects on the ground and like shoot them through people and stuff. So okay, go back to clearance. So now I'm going to sit here, turn on my brake again. But if we go back inside, when I do it, you'll see it flip, right? Go. if you got an Xbox controller, it's just left on the D-pad. So now we get to start up.
Start. Right
Does it
engine
just-
fuel control switch. Run.
Now it's going to look
ICAs.
this up. So this is N2 and this is N1. So this is the inner engine, the inner turbine inside the engine, and this is the big fan that you see on the front. So as the air passes, as this thing starts sucking back air, it's going to start spinning up the outer, right? But essentially we want this to go to about 20. Start to hear it wind or spool up now. There we go. So,
Monitor.
repeat the procedure.
Left engine start.
Okay, so it didn't continue, so I just go back down here.
Repeat
Turn that one
procedure.
on. Now if we go back and look at control 3, or control 2, you can see it's starting to spool up the second one. If we look at our fuel, we should be sucking back gallons now. Oh, no way. I wonder if it turned on like unlimited fuel on me. Hold on. Assistance options. Aircraft systems unlimited fuel is auto mixture now. So it's off. Okay. It's probably just a bug. Normally you would see this ticking down. For some reason it's not doing it. I don't know why. It's not a huge deal because you always start the planes with 50%. And it's usually more than enough to get to where you're going. Okay. So now that the engines are going and these are generating the power, we can turn off the APU. Alright, cool. So here you can just hitting this button turns off this. In the real thing, there's a lot of fancy stuff you can do with splitting the screens and moving them around and stuff, but in this simulation it's limited. Alright, so we're going to go back up control 9 and we're going to turn off that APU. Right, so we can hit eval.
APU selector.
And then we turn on our lights and do our taxi.
Lights.
So these are the outside lights. Now we got those on. Now we're gonna turn on our runway lights. Show the front there, and then these are the taxi lights at the front. And don't do the strobe. You're not supposed to do it, but it's not like it's gonna matter. It's the bright flashy one. And that's it. We close that on this plane. So now we're gonna ask for permission. So now I have to acknowledge. And basically give it about 10 to 20%. Turn off our brake. And I'm just gonna go up and around this way. Get a little bit more to get going. So you can see your speed down here. It says 15 knots. They'll complain at you, but they're not gonna like kick you out of the game or anything. So it doesn't matter. You go as fast as you want. Now, normally you would do a rudder, like you check your controls, right? So they do tail up, tail down, left, right, and then they'd steer the tail. I don't know what it's called, like ailerons, flaps, blah blah blah. But well, I know flaps. So when I take off on a plane like this, I usually go with 10% flaps or 1 notch of flaps. So I'm gonna hit it now. You're gonna see down on the lower left, my flap starts going down. But you can see it started to separate the wings there a bit. That's just to get you off the runway. Once you're up, you're going to take your flaps back. Now, sometimes ATC is going to bitch at you about traffic interference or not being authorized, right? Just ignore it. Although, unfortunately, sometimes it will also lose this blue line for you, so it can kind of screw you if you don't know where you're going. But another reason I like to have the ATC off is my autopilot AI, is if I turn on the AI, what ends up happening as soon as I cross into this runway, he's gonna immediately tune into the tower, which, like, you generally want to wait until you get in front of your runway, right? Normally, if they asked you to hold at, 28 right to cross, you would ask for permission to cross. But in this case, ATC isn't that smart, right? Because it's just an AI, right? So just cross. They might give you like a warning here. It's a lot better if you have a flight joystick, but if you have Xbox or you don't have like rudders or pedals or whatever, you've got to like tap the X just to slow down and brake. So essentially on an Xbox controller, the A button is your throttle, the B button is to pull back, right? X is to brake. Where is he taking me? You see, sometimes they'll ask someone to like hold position, right? Like if you're taxiing, there's a runway incursion. They always give it to me. Well, this plane's a big boy. And for some reason, it doesn't like to move when I'm turning on it, so. While we're taxiing. Get the airport charts up. Another nice thing about having the audio down for the ATCs that you don't have to listen to it when you're trying to talk. It's nasty. It never stops. So we're taking off on runway 28 right. So essentially we're something like that. So these are the letters that they would give you to take. They would tell you like go like Alpha Foxtrot Hotel Victor cross runway, 18 left, hold short runway 28 right. They'll give you a whole bunch of instructions. Like see right here. So they basically say hold short runway 28 right. And that means stop. So put the brakes on. Now this is the point where I would tune into the tower. And then I'd request takeoff clearance. Right? So I'm going out this way. In this particular case, I'm going to go back inside. I'm going to turn off my runway lights. I'm going to turn off my taxi lights. I would normally turn on my strobes now. Right? Make sure if I needed, depending on my air, like the area I'm in, turn on your wings. The engine at auto ice, usually these guys will turn it on when they're going through clouds and they'll turn it off when they're up in the atmosphere, like 20, 30,000 feet. So we're probably going to get put up to, I don't know, I want to say 37,000, 41,000, somewhere in that vicinity. Oh, let's turn on a couple. Where is it? This one. And then this. Just a little bit. What else have we got? We don't have to worry about anything over there. Oh. Hopefully it's not too bright, but okay, let's look back down. It's worse at night. So some planes will have like an EFB over here, or like electronic flight book, or a tablet or something, like the Phoenix plane. The Citation Longitude has a pretty cool little PDA over here. Okay, so rejected takeoff. So we're going to request clearance. So altimeter 2992, which is what we're set to. At 10, clear for takeoff. Acknowledge. So at this point, I would turn on my flight computer, or my AI, so he can answer the calls. Now just keep an eye on it. So again, just hit the B key and you'll reset your pressure to whatever it needs to be. So this is the target altitude that I had my dial set to, is 5,000 feet. So it's a little down. I'll talk more when we get inside. But so I hit the rejected takeoff. So if I were to hit the brakes, that thing would turn off. Essentially, it's going to be like a rolling start. Now, there's a bit of a difference in this plane versus the A320. The 320 has these different detents, like these notches in the throttle. This one doesn't. So on a 320, there's climb, there's flex, and then there's toga. So toga basically means full power. Take off, go around. It's what it stands for. But when they say full power, they mean that they're just punching it. The problem is the engines can't handle it for more than like 5 to 10 minutes, right? It's disastrous for them. So the alternative is the flex, the FLX. Essentially what it is the flight computer when in flex mode is going to use just enough power to take off based on the runway length, the weight, the wind conditions, right? So the 320 is just a dream to fly because of that stuff, right? So you just put it in flex, and you can go an indefinite period at flex, but at toga power, you got to cut back on toga after like 5 minutes, right? So it's just something about the wear on the engine or something. So in this case, I'm just going to slow down, right? So I'm going to hit the brake here and then watch that knob. Right? But if I were to like pull back on the throttle during a rejected takeoff, that thing would automatically be like, okay, I know what he's doing. He's aborting. So it's just trying to save the human some workload, right? So in this case, we want to make sure that auto throttle is on. In the case of an Xbox controller, autopilot is Y, or we can just click this button right here. Right. So basically we're going to go up, and I'm going to take off. I can click that sucker. Before we go, all of these planes have a flight director. We want to make sure it's on and see how we get these crosshairs. Takeoff, go around, power is what we're aiming for here. So if the autopilot were to fly, the flight director is essentially telling me what it would actually do if I were to give it control. Right, so this is kind of like, okay, this is following your plan. Right, this is where the waypoint is, which is unfortunately the other direction. So you're going to see a lot of these planes have different modes. So the range selectors, there's going to be some kind of range selector, right? Some of them are going to be a fixed analog, some of them are going to be digital like this, right? And then there's a plan mode. You just click it on this one. So they'll usually have a map or a plan, and it just gives you like a radio version, and you can change it on different things. I can put the plan over here, right? So we are pretty much ready to just floor it at this point, and I can show you some of the flight computer once we get up in the air and go fly autopilot, because that's some of the fun stuff. So in this case, legs is going to show me the different waypoints, right? And if I hit the V key, it's going to pop up a visual map, like a crude version of this one up here. Right. Essentially, these are the procedures for the plane and the runway taxis and stuff like that. When you get into these maps or these charts, they'll tell you like at each airport like the limits. Like, okay, if you're on here and you have a missed approach on this runway, you have to go to this altitude, turn this heading, etc. Right? But we're gonna skip all that. We're not going to worry. So essentially, we're going to take off here, and then we're going to turn on the autopilot, and we're just going to go wing over this way. So I'm going to get rid of that. Good. Zoom out a little bit more. So that puts me in follow mode. So close that, cleared, and then I'm going to get rid of this for now, just until we get up in the air. We're ready to go. So, LNAV. Yes, we want that. So the green is what it is now, and the white is what it will eventually do, right? So VNAV and LNAV are two modes that we have. Not all planes support them. The VNAV. So LNAV is your lateral, right? So that's when you're out looking at a map. It's whether I'm going to go left or right. VNAV is vertical, so it's my altitude. Technically, it's in the flight computer, right? So this is flight level 410, so that means 41,000 feet at a speed of 310, right? That's kind of what would normally happen in a real plane, but Microsoft Flight Sim doesn't do VNAV quite fully, right? Different planes will have different things, though, like the 320neo, when you tell it to go like from 30,000 feet down to 5,000 feet, if it's going 300 knots, it'll stop at 10,000 feet, slow down to 250, and then continue to 7,000. Right? Like, these planes have some pretty cool things. VNAV, though, basically means that it would follow everything in this computer, which it's not. We don't go directly to 41,000, but essentially what this number is, remember I told you earlier about the transition altitude, right? That if you're in America, if you're above 18,000 feet, we go to standard, right? The 29.92, right? and we can go above 2,500 feet. But when you're below that number, they refer to it as thousands of feet. So if he tells me to go to 8,000 feet, that means go to 8,000 feet. If he tells me to go to flight level 200, that means 20,000 feet. But it implies standard. Right? You see what they did there? It's like if he says FL or flight level, that means it's implying that we're using standard altitude or standard pressure so that all of the planes know they're at that proper altitude, right? Otherwise, you have to ask for or look up the METAR data to see what the pressure is in your area, right? So anyway, so if we need to dial in a particular heading, like if we're flying on course and then air traffic says, you know, maybe there's some clouds or something, like turn to a heading of, well, in this case, which way are we heading? Well, normally our SID, our standard information departure, would give us a nice path out, right? It would be like this. Not straight back like this, but this airport didn't let me do it, so we're dealing with it today. Although I could probably go in and see. So if we go departure here, yeah, so we're on 28 right, so I go next page, next page, next page, 28 right. If there were SIDs, yeah, see, they don't even show up here. If there were SIDs, they would list here, and I would pick which one I want, and then I would hit execute. And then I go back to my legs. This will show me the actual things, so not a huge deal. Okay, you know what? Dial. My head tracking, reset. Okay, let's punch it. Basically, toga, full throttle. So, V1, you'll see here in on the speed tape. V1 is the speed at which there's no going back. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to look down. VR is the speed that we rotate at. And I'm going to turn off that head tracking. It's too hard. So I'm going to do landing gear up. And then these are the flaps. That red is bad. You see, it's already doing tasks for me. So in this case, I would want to bank to just slightly to the right. Keep my nose down. I'm trying to follow the flight director manually for now, just to get up to a couple thousand feet. Right? Take my flaps from 5 up. So this is the minimum. This is the point at which you want to hit flaps 5, flaps 1, right? So if I take it off, you'll see that red line's gone. So we have full speed ability now. So I'm going to hit autopilot. Right, see that it clicks on, and then I'm going to right click this, or in this case just hit flight level change. I don't need that. So okay, so there's 2 different ways to do this. It's going to hold at 5,000 feet, right? You can see that purple line is the spot that it wants to hold at. And you see the plane starting to turn around to intercept that marker. Right? And there, it leveled off at 5,000. You can see our vertical speed has changed. Get rid of that. And we're basically going to hold at about 5,000. It's going to intercept this line for me, or our course, right? See it up here? They're going to do it at about 45 degrees. So right now we're in manual. I believe it's middle click, right click. it's not that one. It's not that. What is it? This particular plane's a little funky because when it gets into this mode, this doesn't disable anymore. You see I'm clicking it, it's not doing anything. Anyway, we'll talk about the quirks of the systems afterwards, but... So he's saying, okay, so you see here, he gave me instructions, I just didn't hear him. Climb and maintain flight level A180. So I would dial this up to 180. And then I would hit FLC. Or if I'm in VNAV mode, where it takes control of the speed automatically, then I just right-click that knob instead of hitting FLC. So it's a weird quirk of the system, but because like you can't turn on the auto throttle. But if, let's say the plane, or let's say air traffic control says like, hey, maintain this altitude, blah, 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 speed not more than 210, then I would come in and I would turn off the, was it turn off the VNAV? Where is it? Yeah, it doesn't. Trying to get the, there it is, right, okay, so it's right click, and then I would set the speed to what he tells me. And when I'm done again, right click it, goes back. And that's the speed that it would be targeting right there. That's pretty cool, eh? Now in this case I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see the different waypoints coming up. So I'm going to hit the V key. It's going to open up the map, and you see we're on course. Now, some planes are weird. They will not go to this line if they're way off course. So you have to manually change your heading and get yourself back on course. Right, and there's like a little heading bug. You see that little cyan thing? So some planes will show you this, some planes will show it up here, some will show you an old analog dial, but it's essentially the same on all of them. But you could manually dial in something if you wanted, right? You don't even worry about it though. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to get to 18,000 feet and that's going to go into an altitude hold. Or I could hit that right now and it'll level off. Again, I could put VNAV, right click. It's starting to go back up again. Now, because we're up in the air and I'm not going to hit the brakes, I'm just going to pre-dial in the landing speed or the brakes. 2 or 3 is fine. So again, as soon as when you land, this is going to auto brake, but as soon as you put your foot on the brake, it's going to turn it off. Right, so you just let it land. And then meanwhile, like you worry about the reverse thrust until you're ready. So this is your air brakes. So in this case, it's not on. In this case, it's armed. And then you can keep sliding it to get a specific speed. So if it's armed, they'll basically stay off until they need to slow down. So if I tell it to do a speed of 200 and we're going faster than 200, it'll start kicking in the flaps, right? Or if you're landing. Right? But when they do the planes, what they're going to end up doing is they're going to get you to do... wants me to do 290. And then right click. So again, normally we just hit the FLC, the flight level change, and it'll do it. But because I'm doing the VNAV mode, it's managing the speed and everything, then it's basically right click this instead of click that. So this is the waypoint, he says. If periodically you'll see him talk about like, oh, continue to Cubs. Right? We look outside. Let's change our weather. So we're just going to go to a pre-made... You know what? Let's go live weather. Okay, we got to set our altitude. There we go. You got to be careful changing the weather like that, because there could be a change in wind and it'll give you like a crosswind. You can see what's going on over here. Right, it's the angle, right, 231, and that's the speed, 50 knots. I believe that's what it means. We can turn on weather on this, although these two on this plane don't work. So I've got to go to standard. So if I hit B or click this, again, standard is 29.92, but it doesn't do anything. But if I change this to hexapascals, 1013 is the same thing. So we'll go back to standard. Now, if you change something in the flight computer, like if you want to delete a particular waypoint, then you would need to, you would want to do a request IFR clearance again to update your flight plan. But essentially, it's all hand flown. Okay, so let's back out of that one. We'll do the 320 real quick. Now the 320, it's probably the one that I spent the most time on when I started. It's super fun. Well, they're all super fun, but okay, let's take off. We'll do Toronto. Okay, and let's go to KJFK. Is a pretty popular one for me. Nice and close, but not too close. So we'll go high altitude. Change our plane over to airliners. Go with an Airbus 320neo. Check our liveries. Air Canada, baby. Okay. So now runway 23. I'm going to start off on the runway and avoid the cold and dark. Well, yeah, we could, I guess. Okay, so runway 20. First, let's pick a departure. So let's go with Tulek, maybe? Yeah. Runway 23, Tulek 4. And then we'll pick an approach here. So 31 left. So let's set ILS 31 left. Okay, so it's taking us out over the ocean, then back in. So let's pick a reasonable. No, that's way. It's not bad, but let's see what other choices there are for the approach. IGN. No. I do IGN a lot. That's a hell of a distance, though. Hour and 15. So you can go with something like that. So again, runway 23. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom to... Well, you know what? Let's just start off on the runway. I mean, seeing the procedure, starting at a 320 isn't that much different. Now, weather-wise, I'm going to go to live weather. So live. If I start at night, at 10 o'clock, yeah, it's going to be super dark. Let's do like a dusk or dawn thing. take it in? Oh yeah. Zoom up a little bit. 7:30. So something like that. Now we're going to start off right on the runway here with the engines running. So if you're looking for cold and dark start, you've got to pick a ramp or something. If you're looking for, like, you want to be on the runway, engines going, clearance done, blah, blah, you just want to take off, just pick the runway. Depends how much realism you want. Okay. So we've already got our clearance and everything. It's a matter of taking off. Check our lights. So landing lights are on, strobes are on, beacons are on, wings are on, logos on. Runway, normally the runway turn would be on. So if I turn this on, see right there, and then they're off. Right. Taxi lights were set to take off. So the 320's got two versions. It's got taxi and take off or off. Right, so it's 3 positions. So we're doing takeoff. We probably, that's auto on the windshield. So for takeoff, we probably want, because we're going to be going high, we want to turn the engine anti-ice on. So there's a setting in the mode, the default, or in the game where with there's a setting in the game with regards to engine icing and stuff. So you can have it be off, which I think is the default, or you can make it visual only, or you can make it actually impact things. So like you'll see the end, like the windows start to ice up to the point where you can't see, right? So you've got to make sure you get your heating on, which is I think how I have it. So I'm going to turn on my heating here. But essentially to start this sucker up, so control 5, no, control 7, 8, yeah, so in this plane it's control 8. Essentially they start the batteries first. They would turn on the APU here, wait for it, right, hit the starter, right, wait for this to say avail, and then they turn on APU bleed. This is the external power if they wanted to use it, right? And then once the engines are all started up, they just turn it off, right? Turn off all the stuff. Let's see, we get some panel lights. Seatbelts on, no smoking sign on. Do we want the dim? Or the dome, I mean? Yes, probably. The windshield wipers work. Most of this stuff doesn't work. Right, it's all on operational. It does work in Phoenix. Oh. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to go. Windshield heat's auto, so I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, so we're good to go. Cross feeds, we don't touch any of this, but one of the things they'll get you to do is turn on these 3 and then these 3 for the fuel. So that's pretty much it. It's nice and bright now. So we got our speed brakes are armed. That's in the up position. If I push it down, it's off. Right, so it's in the arm position. We're in flaps 10. Right, so it's 1 notch back. We've got our transponders on. Right, so we want it over that way, and you type in the number that they give you. So it's already ready to go. Turn down this a little bit. Oh, wrong one. Just light up the panels. See the green in it? Or is it this one? Okay, so auto brake is on, anti-skid is on. Eventually we're going to turn auto brake on when we land here, but so B key to set the altitude. You can see it's kind of reset, and we're at 29.78 here. Now this particular thing, so this is where it gets interesting. Over. So there's these detents. So pulling it back goes into reverse thrust, when you're landing. But this is climb. This is where it has to be when you're flying the plane and doing the auto throttle. It has to be clicked into this notch or you screw yourself, right? If the flight computer has all of the information about the runway and everything, and it's got the profiles, you can do flex, the flex detent, right? Toga is just full throttle, right? So in our case, this flight computer is not perfect, but it's got enough information, right? So you can see there's our flight plan. This is if you want to go direct to a particular place, so you can type in the name and then hit direct to. In this page up and down to scroll through your waypoints. Right? So we're going from Toronto, runway 23, then D0, D1, right? Then we're going to waypoint Telok, Ikmok, right? Going through all these different waypoints. You can see it's got a bunch of different altitude set. It doesn't have speed set, so it's a little more limited. This would be a secondary flight plan if you needed to quickly activate it. Right, you would have a secondary, like a fallback airport and stuff. This is if you want to fly the radials manually by tuning in like the radio channels, right? You don't worry about that. Normally you would initialize here, you'd plug in your flight numbers, all your different fuel weights, what cruise level we're going to, so flight level 39, so we're going to 39,000 feet. We're going from Toronto to Kennedy, right? And then the next page, there's taxi speeds. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can plug into, but this particular flight sim doesn't let you touch them, right? If you see something that has like a square box, but not like this, so it'll look like it's a bunch of square blanks, that's information that's required that you can change. Okay, so our GPS is good. So basically, in this case, we just want to take off, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just push it until it gets into flex. And then you'll see up here, right? You'll see which mode we're in. But once we're up and going, so what do we want for altitude? But once we're up and going, that I'm going to pull back and put this into the climb detent if I can get it all in time. So because there's no speeds shown here and it's a little dot, that means the computer's managing. So I talked earlier about the push versus pull. If I push it in, I want the computer to manage it. If I pull it, I want me to manage it. So if I hold my left on this, you can see pull out or push in. So in order to pull it out, I middle click. In order to push it in, I right click, right? So selected speed mode would be, I dial this in manually, and then I would middle click, which also is the view, so it's kind of hard. And you see the dot disappears, or I can right click and it goes back into giving it control of the computer, right? This is the range if I want to adjust this, and this is where it gets interesting. So when you have your flight plan from the first screen, if you set it to that mode and then you click this up arrow and down arrow to zoom through the waypoints, you can check the validity of your flight plan through the entire flight to see if there's any disconnects, right, or incomplete information. There we go. And then we'll put it back to arc, and then we zoom in for takeoff, and then we'll zoom out when we're ready to get like a broad view of the system. So you can see that the 320 is a little more manual controls. We want constraints on so we can see the altitudes and stuff. We can look at waypoints. They'll show on the map. We can look at non-directional beacons, which is just radio beacons that are blasting, right? You don't know which angle you're coming at them from, but you know how far away. So you'll see DME equipment on some planes, the distance measuring equipment going by NDBs. You can see airports that are nearby, or you can go by your VORs, right? So in our case, we're going to go constraints, or even just turn that off. So, so in our case, make sure that's good, make sure that's good. Let's scroll up and see what altitude you wanted me to go to. You wanted me to climb to 6,000 feet, so I'm going to dial that in now, right? So that once I get off the ground, I basically can kick it in. So there's going to be Okay, don't ever hit the localizer or the approach. That's for when you're getting close to landing. But essentially, what's going to happen is I'm going to get up here off the ground, and if I hold on the altitude to engage the altitude, right, it's going to be like a middle click. But once I take off, I'm going to hit the key on the joystick, and we're going to basically turn on autopilot 1. Damn, dude. Am I holding you up? But because heading's not there and speed's not there, that means this is completely managed by the computer. Right, so let's go. Turn off the brake. So now it says apply full throttle. Don't listen to this thing. Watch, this is where our throttle is going to be. And we're basically watching for V1, right? So V1 is the speed at which it's too late to stop, right? You have to commit to the takeoff. VR is the roll. That's the point at which you pull back on the throttle. And then V2, I forget what V2 is. Oh, there's a fly-by-wire dude. That's one of those purchased airplanes. That's the actual person. Anyway, let's just go. So, one thing you'll see them do is they'll push a little bit on forward just to keep the nose down while they're taking off until they get up to the V speed, but you'll see it on the speed tape here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look down a little bit, and I'm going to push, climb, whoa, go flex, there we go. So I'm going to push forward a little bit, and I'm going to give it a little bit of rudder to keep you centered. So I'm going to go to about -3 degrees just to keep the nose down. See our marker. Okay, I'm going to let go. I'm going to pull back. So you can see it says flex. So I'm going to put up my brake or my landing gear. I'm going to take the flaps off. And I'm going to hit autopilot, and I'm going to pull the speed back to thrust climb. Oh, I forgot to acknowledge the hand, so I have my autopilot off. So altimeter 2978. If we look there, it's 2978, so we don't have to change it. And you can see it's already following the flight director, and this is the target speed it's going to aim for. Deal with our lights. So we can turn off the takeoff lights here. We have to keep these big ones on until we hit 10,000, unfortunately. The wing lights you can turn on or off. It's just I mean, it's just what do you call it, vanity. See, we're coming up on 6,000. Let me turn on the sound for ATC. Where is it? Takes the speech sampling Azure. So if you want to use your own built-in Windows thing and you don't want your stuff going to Azure to be translated, you can turn that off. Or if your internet's acting up. Communications, iPhone simulation. It's not that one, is it? No. I don't think it's there. Where is it? It's under assistances. Piloting, assisted, AI radio communications. Yeah, that's on right now. Anti-stall. I like to keep anti-trim on. I don't like the anti-stall. You got to be careful with the stall stuff or the AI stuff, because he will take over the computer and it's like, oh no, we can't land. He'll just start pulling it up and flooring it, right? So it's like, damn, I forget where the setting is. Damn it. I don't know where it is. There's a setting I turn off because I do VATSIM, and you don't want it's just constantly speaking ATIS over and over again. It's like a bug. Anyway. So, see autopilot kicked in. So when you get closer to the airport, essentially you're going to turn on the ILS system, right? And when it's on, you're going to see a purple diamond come in here from the sides and one come in vertical. And when the horizontal one, you click lock or the localizer, and that's going to line you up like latitude wise. And then once you get to intercept the glide slope, when the purple one comes down within range, you're going to hit approach. You don't do it until you're lined up though, right? And that's how the plane lands itself. So we're going to turn it off. So he wants me to go to 14,000 feet, so you just dial it up to 14,000. And then, was it right click? I guess it is in this. It's been a while. And you can see it wants to go to... Does it want to go there yet? No, I don't think that was it, was it? Up the speed. Oh, there it goes, yeah. So it wanted to get the speed up. So there's a whole bunch of stuff this thing's doing on its own. So we're going to zoom out. I'm going to hit V to open up the map. And then just mouse over. Oh, I didn't even know it was random. Sorry. I guess they work in the Phoenix, but I guess they don't work on this one. So once you get past 10,000 feet, that's generally when you're going to put the seatbelt lights off. And now that we're 10,000 feet, we can turn off the lights. You can go further and retract them as well for like aerodynamics, I guess. And once you're above the clouds, you can turn off your anti-ice. It's in the clouds, that's when you're going to see the biggest accumulation if you got it on. In fact, we can even see if we get some of the effects of it here. I can't turn off the window heat, so maybe not. It's autumn. That sucks. Okay. Coming up on 14, it's going to start slowing our vertical speed down. Now, if you wanted to set a vertical speed specifically, you could use this dial, and we might be able to do that here. So you can ask the computer ATC for altitude increases. You can go from 1 to 10,000 increments. So altimeter is 2977. We're at 2978, so we would adjust that altimeter down. Where's it? I don't think it's this one, is it? Yeah. So there's this in this plane. This is a secondary one. The actual altimeter, where is it? Oh my god, it's been a while. Yeah, it's this one. So if you see here, 29778, click it, 2977. And then this one's just a backup, but it has its own. When you hit the B key, it's going to set both of them at the same time. So he's saying, okay, so now he said climb and maintain flight level 240. So that means we go to standard. So if I left click, you say to go to standard, I do the middle click. So if I middle click this, it goes to standard. And now I'm going to set this to 240. But I'm going to set a vertical speed of 500. So now what's going to happen? Oh, we got to turn first. everything. So engage vertical speed or level off the plane is right. So we want a middle click. So if I were to set this to 500 and then middle click it, now we're going to use this, and it's going to stop once it hits this altitude. Right, so this is like the goal, right? But you can dial it in advance and it doesn't activate until you're ready. So you can see now we're holding it 500 feet per minute. Let's go up to like 700. Let's see if it goes. There we go, it's about 700. Let's take it up to 1,000. So just once it's in this mode, you can just dial it. See the plane there. Yeah, so I can turn the Toby tracker on, but like I said, when you do this or VR, it's a little hard to hold your head still, look down, and try to grab stuff. So if you're just sightseeing, head trackers in VR are awesome. Otherwise, they can be a little bit of a challenge, like just operationally speaking. Okay, we're coming out of the clouds here. So we're still going to 24,000 feet, but the speed's a little slow. So let's right click and give it control again. So now the plane's going to decide how fast the vertical speed should be. As you can see, Toronto Tower is already starting to get pissed off at us. They're saying, please expedite your climb to flight level 240. Go. Now, sometimes even though you're on standard and you're like 30,000 feet in the air, you'll see an incorrect altitude come up. And I think it's because of this, or like if there's other barometers and stuff. So you can just hit the B key and it'll reset all of them at the same time. That's usually all I do. Now, if you look at one of these waypoints, you can actually click it, and you can get information here. So this is the one built into the game, and the one I have here, the Navigraph charts. This is the add-on version. Just give it a sec to load. Load that up. Hide that. And we want world map to get rid of some of the noise. Lock onto us, so that's going to follow us. Same as this, but this has got way more charts. It's got like airport charts and stuff. This does not. This is good if you're just looking to like, oh hey, what's that airport's VOR or ILS? So you can see it. This is the ILS runway, this is the heading, and this is the radio frequency you would use. So you'd set a heading at 250, right? So if we actually want to look at Toronto's like airport information, so you got the standard 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 approach, standard information departure. So this is when you're approaching, or standard arrival. This is the approach. This is the standard information departure. So this is stuff when you're leaving, and this is when you're taxiing the runways. Like there's different charts and stuff for the different airports. Okay, so he wants me to go to 3100 real quick, so hold on. There we go. Right click. So this big wheel, by the way, is the trim. So if you were pulling back on the joystick to go up, you don't want to hold the joystick for like 30 minutes, right? Or the flight control, whatever. The yoke, depending on, you know, what plane you're in. So they have trim, right? So essentially you can do the trim to that point so that you can just let go and it's like zeros the joystick position. Right, it's just right now I've got auto trim and stuff, so this thing is just spinning and doing whatever it wants. Right, it's autopilot. But that's what it is. And it's crazy. If you look at a plane, like a video of a real 320, this thing's just flying. It's pretty cool. So if we wanted to like look at Toronto information or approach information for a particular runway, so we can say, okay, show me the chart for runway 05, right? ILS runway 05. So if I have this, and I zoom in, you can see the different ILS information, right? So heading of 057, right? So you see 057 degrees, and tune into channel 109.7. And then there's the Morse code that you would hear if you were to listen to it, just to verify, right? And then they have a directional, like non-directional beacon, I believe is what that is. And that's the frequency that it uses, and that just blasts out where it is, so that you'll have DME gauges on some planes that'll show you how long until you reach that particular thing, right? They'll show you like distances. So there's a way to read these charts. But essentially what you have to do in order to catch the glide slope, we have to be at 30,000 feet on a heading of 57 by the time we get to Dalpa waypoint, right? And then you have to make your decision. I forget what it's like a decision altitude. I forget what the M stands for. But essentially at that point you have to decide, are you going to land or are you going to go around? Right? So you would take off, and then if you take off you follow the path through, and then there's like hold patterns and stuff, right? That's what this is. So if you there's an established hold pattern for different airports and different runways and stuff, or I don't think it's runways, but if I go into one of these waypoints, so I could click on a waypoint and then I can click hold, which some of them have a button. Some of these FMCs have a button. Some of them you go into the waypoint. So where are we heading here? So on this VFR, oh, hold on, I gotta deal with this guy. He wants me to go to 390. So set it, right click, away it goes. You see, we start climbing again. So let me get rid of this chart. Let me go back to follow mode. Let me minimize this. So if you're looking at this one, you just hit this GPS tracking to recenter yourself. Or you can just drag it and zoom in and out to a point and figure out where you're going. Right? So in this case, if I wanted to hold at... not sure which one is mine here. Hoser. Let me zoom in here. There we go. Control 5. So you could click Hoser, and then you could say hold. And I don't know if it'll do it on this particular one. I don't think hold works in this FMC. We'll find out. But there's basically, when you do a hold, what it ends up doing, they don't show it here, but what it would end up doing is it would actually update the flight plan to show you that loop. Okay, I got rid of the chart. But the hold loop, right? It's like a holding pattern that they go into. And then you could cancel it. You can do it in the Fenix. You can't do it in this one because this is like a very stripped down version of the 320. He's handing us off. Very nice out. So we can turn off the... oh, I already turned it off. Anyway. That's another airplane. Cool. Okay, so F key. Oh, if you're flying and you want to just quickly look up, you hit spacebar. And then hit it again, it goes back down. So it's just a quick up and down. So usually when I'm flying, I ignore that. Usually when I'm flying, I'll hit spacebar and I'll look kind of center and down a little bit just so I have a view of my flight computer, my waypoints, like all of the displays, and most importantly this panel right here. And that's usually good enough. So again, the big thing, make sure you're in the climb detent. Right? So autopilot, like if you get in the real like 320 and like a Fenix or something, and like it's not in the right thing, it'll start like sounding alarms and like going nuts on you. And if it happens, it's going to be one of these two, and you can just hit it to silence it. But depending on the alarm, it might turn off the autopilot and stuff. Like the real plane, if you're not doing things proper, like it starts turning and locking systems and stopping you from doing things. Like if your flaps are down, it's not going to let you floor it, right? It'll turn off autopilot if your wheels are down and you're at a certain speed. Like it's got all these flight control systems and stuff, right? That's logic. But not the built-in ones. The built-in planes are usually pretty good. Actually, there's one plane that might let you do a little bit more out of the box. I can show you that. So if you want to skip ahead, you can hit travel to. You can say, okay, I want to go to approach. You want to travel to it? And I can say, yep. So it lets you skip ahead and essentially start in the middle of the air. Now, you got to be careful when you do this because depending on how they coded or scripted it, it can sometimes put you into a weird place where you've got like a headwind, or you're not going fast enough, or you're at 5,000 feet instead of 30, or you're 30 instead of 5. Like, so double check everything. Whoa. So it's like starting fresh again. So we gotta quickly get sorted out. It's like, okay, oh wow, look what it did to that. Hold on, let me get that guy settled out. Okay, so we are on path. Autopilot is on. I'm going to hit B to redo my altitude. Good. Acknowledge the handoff. So I got to tune in manually to New York, then I have to contact them. Okay, so now I'm going to turn back on my flight for AI so that he deals with all this junk. So 2995 is our altitude. Yep. And he wants me to continue, and I am at 7,700 feet. Maintain present heading to Shant, clear to Shant. So I don't know if he gave me a particular altitude. ACA, traffic insight. So I'm just going to assume that 7,600 is okay. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this. I'm not going to touch the other. Well, you know what? Let me take it to 7,000. So now my speed, what are we at? Oh God, we're gotta go to climb. There we go. He's not talking to me yet. So we'll do a landing, I guess. So I'm gonna put on auto brakes on medium. Auto skid, I'm just gonna leave it. I don't know what the weather's like there. Like I'm doing this weather, but like it might be going by the actual weather. I don't know. Sometimes the game will do weird stuff. Okay, so climb and maintain 76. Oh, really wants me at 7600.
Overspeed.
Yeah.
Overspeed.
This is what I'm talking about, like the AI.
Overspeed.
Send and maintain 2000. Dude, make up your mind.
Overspeed.
Yes.
Overspeed.
Gotta check the flaps.
Overspeed.
995, so hit B. So what is my speed set to?
Overspeed.
Flaps are up. My landing gear's up. Why is it? See, this problem is we're at 400. Let me right click this. Yeah, okay, so this is the problem with teleporting. Sometimes you get these weird bugs, so let me manually... Oh, it still wants to climb. Wow, okay. So we're just going to take it down to 250. Oh, maybe not that much. Let's take it to 200. Oh my god, not right click. There we go. Did not. Yeah, it's stuck. There's nothing I can do. It's ignoring throttle completely. Let me toggle autopilot. Hold on. Put it back on. It does not want to do. Wow, that's. I'm sorry, there's nothing much I can do. It's going nuts. He's not supposed to be following this. That's the problem. So, yeah, so occasionally you're going to get stuff like this where you do something like jump ahead and the plane just gets into a bad state. Like the state machine in this is so broken. For some planes, not all the times. If you just fly the plane proper from start to finish, it's usually not a problem. So we'll get her slowed down eventually here. You know what? Let me check this. No, it's still. No. There we go. It's so bad. See, the problem is now it's screwed up our approach. We're so fast and we're so high, right? Unless I drop this thing down at like a 90-degree angle. I'm gonna do like 5,000 foot descent if I can get it. Let's go 6. That's pushing it. That's crazy. We'll see if we can get lined up. Okay, so the localizer is this thing here. Ignore the fact for a second that the computer tried to have us killed. So let's go back a little bit. You know what? Let's go auto. But I'm going to use the dial. Just to see if it works. Oh my God, it doesn't.
2,500.
Well, we're just going to have to go by hand. So localizer is when this diamond's in. So we're going to hit localizer. And then I've got to get the speed going and get my trims going and my air brakes and all that stuff.
Overspeed. Overspeed.
Yes, I know,
Overspeed.
computer.
Overspeed. Overspeed.
It's so...
Overspeed.
Ugh.
Overspeed.
Like, there's nothing I can do because I can't...
Overspeed. Overspeed. Overspeed.
I can't use the
Overspeed.
dial, right? So it's like I've got to
Overspeed.
manually do
Overspeed.
the button tapping.
Overspeed. 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 Overspeed.
There's no way I'm gonna make this
Overspeed.
landing, dude. There's
Overspeed.
no way.
Overspeed.
I'm already
Overspeed.
past the approach. You know what? This is how you do it. Ignore the computer, I'm telling you. Normally you would just declare a missed approach.
Overspeed. 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 Overspeed.
Yes, I
Overspeed.
know.
Overspeed.
Kids, don't do this at home.
Overspeed.
1,000.
Overspeed.
I got landing gear down? No, I don't. Shit. Let's go.
500.
This is gonna be
400. 300. 200. 100. 60. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retire.
Ooh, no, that's a bad one. Wow, that was so bad. Okay, I can't land. I can if it's a straight on, but doing that side shit. Ooh, that was nasty. Well, let me do the wings here, or the spoilers, speed brakes. Oh my god. I should have not made it. I have lethal damage turned on, so if I hit too hard, it just ends the flight. But apparently it accepted that, so I guess it was within tolerance, or I would have died. So... normally you'd be turning on your APU and stuff right now. But it's a little hard to do while you're on the runway and you're trying to get off and you've got no co-pilot. Two on ground. Request taxi to gates. Acknowledge the clearance and then follow the blue line. Yeah, that's a rough landing. Landings and takeoffs are... Takeoffs are kind of easy, but sometimes they get squirrely. Actually, I guess I'll do... To wrap it up, maybe... Well, I'll do Phoenix. That would be a nice one, just to show you the real thing. So we'll call her there. This is a highway. Quote unquote. Menu. Like the real Airbus 320, the Phoenix one. Oof, it's a different beast. It's like that fly-by-wire one that drove past me. It's like a full-fledged simulator. So if we do Where are we? I'm just gonna go CYYZ, zoom in, and hey, start beside this guy. Depart, and that's it. That's all I'm gonna do. I'll do live weather and live preset. Oh damn! I didn't do. I forgot to change the plane. What do you do? Escape out. Yeah, I can. Cool. Back here, I'll start here. I'm not going to fill in a destination or anything, but I am going to change from here to the Phoenix. Go to liveries. Got Air Canada one downloaded. Weights and balance. Basically flying nowhere. Oh, how do I want to do this? You know what? I'm going to Alt-Tab. You can't see this, but I'm going to go to SimBrief. It's kind of hard to show the browser without doing OBS stuff. That, and if this is on YouTube, like, I mean, I just gotta be careful when I put it there. So I'm gonna do a new flight in this. I'm gonna put in my call sign, flight number. I'm gonna depart from CYYZ to KJFK. See. You know what? What is Ottawa? CYOW. Let's go. Alternate. None. Aircraft type is the Phoenix. I'm gonna accept all the things. I'm gonna generate the flight. Cool. So now I have a flight. For the fuel, I'll set the fuel when I'm in. Start. Yep. Little dark. This is why I don't like starting at night, because these planes have no. That's like, no, this is cold and dark, bitch. Hold on. Okay. So this one has an EFB, or an electronic flight book. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. And essentially, this thing is very. It's trying to be like what a real pilot would have. So first things first, let me set this time to daylight. There we go. I'll keep the live weather, but I'm going to change the time. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through a startup. Now, I don't know if they had the checklist or if it was any different. Yeah, so this thing had no checklist. But this is like, you're on your own. So external power is available. So the first thing you do is turn on the batteries. Oh, damn, yeah, they're already on. That's unusual. Okay, external power is available. So I'm going to notch this up. And before I do that, I'm going to... Okay, so there's no autopilot, dude. Okay, so I don't have to worry about him then. So we're gonna skip the external power. We're gonna fire it up. Just gonna fire it up. Off APG. No. I don't want to do the external. Turn on. Oh, they weren't on. There they go. There's the battery. Sorry, I just read that wrong. Turn on the APU. Start. Crew supplies got to be on. So like this is more like real. Like you've got to actually have some of these things in the right positions. A lot of stuff will click, but it doesn't necessarily do anything. And the audio for the Fenix is more like natural. So generally, the way they do it is they do the electrics, right? They'll go like, was it top down? I think left to right, something like that. Waiting for it to APU to come up. Waiting for the computer systems to boot up. They'll actually go through like a boot. I think it's crazy. Pull out this or Horizon. Nope. So the Fenix, if you're looking for the real thing, this is the paid mods generally have more of an accurate flight system. We'll do a full flight on this sucker. And this one, I can crash this one on taking off because you really got to have everything perfect or it starts squawking at you. And even this isn't fully accurate. Like if you watch like a 320 startup, there's certain things that they have to hold down and stuff to actually take these planes off or get them their APUs fired up. And like there's a checklist of things they have to do. It's pretty cool. Okay. So while we're getting the APU going up here, that was a Control 5. Yeah, there we go. So now that that's up and it's available, we're going to turn on APU bleed. Pumps on. The heat. Reasonable back there. We want our beacon on. Strobe. I'm going to leave it on auto. I'm just curious to see if it turns on. Generator plugged in. We are good. I don't want to. So where's the cockpit recorder? Turn that on. Brightness a bit. So smoking auto. Arm the emergency. Gonna worry about that stuff. So turn on, we want auto heat because in Toronto right now would be pretty cold. On the anti-ice. Wings on. Nav and logo. Okay. So we don't want the runway on yet, we don't want the taxi on yet. We're not going to put their seatbelts on yet. We're not moving. Let's see if the... Yeah. Windshield wipers work in this one. Okay. So I'm going to import the flight plan that I made from SimBrief. To CYOW. Is that... That's not the one I did. Is it? Hold on, let me alt-tab and look. It is, yeah. CYOW. So we can take out the GPU, so that's the ground power unit. See that cable? So I'm going to take out the chocks, just that we're blocking the thing that you can't see. I'm not going to connect all the tugs and stuff, but what we're going to do is the flight plan has a random number of pilots and stuff, so we're going to board them and load the aircraft. We're going to do it 7 minutes. Let's go. And I'm going to resend the sheet to my ACARs. It's actually going to load the plane to show us the operational limits, maximum takeoff weight, maximum landing weight. This is the zero fuel weight, right? So there's basically, we got to put in some center of gravity and stuff on the flight computer. So we're going to go over to pilot brief. We're going to load the brief that we entered, or that I created. So there's a site that I go to. It's what it's called, Flight Sim, or simbrief.com, and it's a free site, but you have to pay if you want the latest databases. But essentially, you can import it, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't display great. I usually use this one. This is like an add-on, does the same thing, so I just fetch it. Boom, there we go. So it basically, the latest one that you generate, it automatically, all of the add-ons and stuff will fetch it. And they just need to know your user ID. They don't need to log in, right, because it's public information. So you have your origin. So I'm going from Toronto to, in this case, Ottawa. There's an alternate that's undefined. My cruise altitude is going to be 29,000 feet. A cost index of 5. Basically, the lower the number is, the more inefficient the fuel is. So it's just going to like burn fuel for climbs and do things inefficiently. Whereas a higher cost index is going to be more efficient. Right. So 5 is probably the worst I've seen. And these are the waypoints. I'm leaving Toronto on runway 15 left, going to Verdot 7. And then L sub, and then Cap TLS, and then I'm landing at COW at Montreal Airport at runway 7 ILS. So this is how much fuel and weight that I'm expected to be doing. SimBrief filled in random values, and then essentially this system is going to, it's going to go based on that. So if I look at the actual raw text, this is what like the pilots get, right, when they file a flight plan. It's going to tell them particular information like the cost index, the flight level that they're going to, right, how much fuel they're going to use, which runways, the actual route that they're taking, right, how much gas they're going to waste taxiing, right. It's pretty crazy stuff. There's more to what the flight pilots have to do than what the sim shows you. So this is the passengers, 125, right? It's 125 people, right? My zero fuel weight, what the plane's capable of, how much fuel I'm bringing. So now I have to go and adjust the fuel. Looks like you might already did it. See, we got 130, 138. Yeah, it says zero fuel weight. Yeah. Landing weight 126. So block fuel 7.5, 7.5. Yeah. So it's already set it for me then. Right on. So I don't have to set it. Slowly burning. That's the APU running, right? Once I start up the engine, it's going to be a different story. Oh, I wish I should have said instant. I gotta wait. Okay, so we want to tune to ground, tune to clearance. There we go. Oh wait, I don't have the. See, I forgot to do the flight computer. Hold on, my bad. No, not fetch. One of the things you have to do in Phoenix is put in the flight computer. Which number is it? There we go, control 1. So clear. So that's the data sheet that it sent me. I want to grab that. I want to accept it. Essentially load it. It's got takeoff fuel, all that stuff. So you can't do this in the built-in one, right? So data, or sorry, init. So this is required information. So flight number. I have it. Where they put it here? Let's. Remember which one they want for this. So GPS is locked, so I can click clear to clear that. Navigation accuracy has been upgraded. Change that. The route, I'm going to ignore that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think it might be this one here. So N0388 F290. No, that's not it. So we're just going to plug in this information. I'm never sure what this one is. CYYZ/CYOW. There we go. Cost index was 5. And then the cruise altitude was 290. So I type FL 290, or you can just type 290, I think. That's good. So now you see there's a left or right here, so I can go to the next page. Right. So the zero fuel weights. Actually, I get more. Recording complete. So the zero fuel weight is 122. So I can type in 122. 122.9. And then if I know the zero fuel weight center of gravity /31. Fuel planning, I can let that go. Block fuel, what was it, 7? 6. Yeah, that's how much I need, so I had an extra. Confirm. Cool. Okay, so that was it. So now we go perf. So essentially I need to get the V1, V2, etc. Where is it? Departure. So we were taking off on runway what is that, 7? No. 15 left. So we want runway 15 left. It is wet. Sync the load sheet for the takeoff weight. We want anti-ice on. Engine plus wings. Toga force, no. We're going 1 flaps. Put that down now. That's good. Maximum takeoff weight's good. Sync the METAR data. There we go. And then calculate. So it's going to tell me my V1. So once I get past 125, I cannot stop. At 135, I pull back. I pull back on the stick and start to take off. My flaps are at 1 with a downward, I forget what the THS stands for, but it's essentially, it's adjusting the trim, I think, down 0.5. And then it has the flex temperature. So everything is going to be set up for the flex takeoff instead of having to use Toga. So I got to punch in 125, 135, 135. Flaps were 1 and down 0.5, so we go 1/DN 0.5. And flex 2 temp was 67. Yeah. There we go. There we go. So next phase. Cost index, I'm not doing anything else. Manage mode, speeds, I'm not going to touch any of that stuff. This is for the climb. This is for cruise. Estimated fuel on board, right? It's going to be 2.4. The next phase, descent. That's Mach 0.7, right? So expedite, I'm not going to touch any of this stuff because I don't know half of it does. Or any of it. So you can plug it in here now, but you're not supposed to plug in the details until you get closer, right? But I mean, the flight sim, they're not going to care. I can't remember if this was automatically filled it in for me. But if you can look up the information, I think there was a way you could do it from here. Refresh METAR. So I would say, okay, which one runway am I landing at? Runway 7. Good medium. I don't know. Apply the METAR. There we go. So there's all of our temperatures, like the QNH and stuff, like 29.84. Right, so 29.84. The temperature is 1 degree. Wow. Right, the wind is 100/04. Before. Yeah. There we go. So now we have to do our actual flight plan stuff. So, program, where is it? Flight plan, flight plan. There we go. So departure, we're taking off from runway 15 left. We're not using a SID in this case, although we probably could. Wonder if we should. Birdo 7. There it is. We were, sorry. So if it has a number, it's going to be like a SID or a star. If it doesn't, it's just a waypoint. But don't really give good. This is a pretty short flight, so they don't really give the greatest. Usually they'll say DCT. We're going to L sub for the trans. Okay, we want to insert that. And then after L sub, we want to go. Oh, wait, no, sorry. There's the destination. Sub destination is CYOW. Oh, wait, is that it? No, that's not right. CYOW, the airways. No, it's not an airway we want, is it? Yeah, so this is go via an airway. We don't want that. I can erase that. Undo it. So Verdo, L sub, Decel. It doesn't have a destination for some reason. That's right. That's not what I want. IOW, there it is, arrival. So I want ILS runway 7 and the cap TL 5 via L sub. It's such a short flight, it's got all of it. Cert. There's a flight plan discontinuity, but for the most part, that should be it. Cool. And then there's like an alternate, and it goes into like a whole pattern. The discontinuities, I haven't been able to figure out how to get rid of them in every case. But essentially, I can tell this to go manual to the next one, like Alcut. You type like AL KUT, say next waypoint. Alright, but that doesn't get it for some reason, so just erase it. Usually I end up just deleting this and then joining the two, but I don't know, I haven't figured it out. So I'm going to ignore that. Look at that. FMC. It tells me which database I'm using. It's not what I wanted. Was it here? ATC. No, this is something completely different. Although, what was this? Transfer to DCDU. I forget what that did. I thought there was something I had to do here in order to get it sent to them, though. No, I haven't received anything. Oh, this is interesting. I think that you can actually do some like configuration of the module, the mod here. Where is it here? Yeah. You can enable failures, and this can simulate random failures of the system. Okay, so tune in Toronto ground. I want. See, I don't know how to request the IFR from these guys. This is the problem. Clearance. I do kind of want the audio on though. Hold on. Got to double check and see where that was. Did they have audio? Yeah, I don't want that on yet. I could have swore I disabled the audio for the game. It says 100%, but there. No. Damn, I thought it was one of those. Is it? Where is it? Damn, go figure. The one, like when you turn it off, you want it, and then when you don't want it, it's like can't find it. It's like got the right setting there, but it's just don't. I put the thing. I swore it was here. just ignore it. So we don't want to just between ground, Toronto ground. Oh, I do need ground clearance though. Where is it? Yeah, see, clearance doesn't give me a choice. We're just going to start her up. Okay, pumps are on, ready to go. Okay, and then how do I get down? 7, 8, no. 6, that'll do. So we want to go to start position. Whoa, why are my throttles in? Checklist. No smoking sign. Reverse engine unlocked. Why is that reverse engine unlocked? Let's do 2 off. Now, unlike the simulator built in, this one's like, it's got all the different buttons down here that work. Set my altimeter. Now, apologies in advance. When I take off on this thing, she's gonna start screaming at me until I get it sorted, so. Predictive wind shear off. This has to be turned on, or at least on auto. That's gone. There is a company message. I do have to have my transponder on. It's in standby. Go. That. Flaps sets. Why is it so? There's a problem with it when you use a controller, the calibration's off, so one of these engines is still stuck in reverse. There we go. Ground spoilers armed, no smoking light. See, it's still... It's hard to fly this plane because of that calibration. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go. There we go. So I can turn off the bleed in the APU. Ground lights, taxi. Go. Flight runway 15 left to calculate contact tower. When ready, 118.35. ready to go. Master engine 2 master off. It's not off. You know what? We're just gonna clear that caution. I can't do anything about the reverse. It's like permanently stuck. It's going to be a pain too, because if they're not synchronized and they're not locked, I do have to go full reverse anyway, so we'll see. Stuck steering. I don't know how to do anything about it. I've had better experience with my joystick. Yeah, with my joystick, it's not so bad because the throttle's more like proper, whereas the Xbox controller, there's no analog throttle. It's just hold down the button to go forward or not. But yeah, I don't know. There's still some bugs with this mod, but it's the most accurate you can get. Okay, now while that's going on, we need seatbelts. Cool. Taxi's on. The one thing I do like is the auto taxi speed. Like, it does get it good. So, like, this plane is notorious for being like a easy to fly plane. Well, for a pilot, right? It does so many things for you. And again, because I don't have the analog throttles and brakes and stuff, it's really tricky to do some of this stuff. Why is it stuck turning? Oh my god. It's like a fighter jet taking off. Now, I'm not going to bother looking up charts and stuff. I'm just going to go straight to 10,000. This one's a tough one to take off because if it's not perfect, the auto speeds and shit, it starts yelling at you. takeoff clearance because it's like, can I? Oh shit, it will let me. Nice. Straight out, clear for takeoff. Acknowledge. So I've got to check some things real quick. Auto brake max, signs on, cabin ready, spoilers armed, flaps takeoff. See, I did the takeoff config, it just didn't accept it. So, runway turn lights off, take off. Yeah, let's go. To flex. Okay, we got flex. So apologies for the audio, but it's gonna start screaming at me. At least most of the time. To climb before he yells at me. There we go. Thrust climb. Now we gotta grab our altimeter. Good. Autopilot on. Yeah, it's doing the thing. See, it won't let me turn on the autopilot while I'm at a low altitude. Yeah, I'm climbing now. I've got to get to a certain altitude. This is the part of the thing that I don't understand. There we go, autopilot on. Nope, wrong one. Graph. Import from SimBrief. And on route. And zoom in. Oh shit, I'm not even on a course. There's my V. See, now I need the AI, but I don't have it as an option. It's like, no. I've got to do it by hand in this plane. Squawk code 5353. Acknowledge radar contacts. So 5353. 3. Transponders on. Cool. Okay, so we need to get to direct to Alcut. And go. There we go. So the problem is that disconnect made it so that I took off and I was just going randomly. So now I had to adjust the flight computer to take me where I need to go. Farmer Tower, okay. This is why I wish I had the ATC. Okay. 10,000. Turn off our lights. Let the passengers do shit. Accept the handoff. Change over to the next airport. Contacted. My God. Strobe should be strobing. I'm just going to ignore them at this point. So let's go to, what's it, 29,000? It's why I don't like the radio. It's just too much. It's Microsoft Flight Sim's nice, but when you get into the add-ons, they don't. They kind of let the people that write the add-ons take care of their own stuff. But the problem is, it's like having 500,000 people contributing to your code, and they're all varying levels of quality, right? So to not have a reliable and consistent experience is probably the biggest problem with Flight Sim so far. But once I get close to the airport, where am I going? Right here. Go. Let's go to 29,000. Speed limit exceeded. My bad. Uh-oh. Did I have... see what that says, because if this thing's got a problem, it will fuck me over. Oh, yeah, just hit the B key. Cool. The electrics, hydraulics, and fuel. I mean, it's the same. Unless you turn on failure modes, everything should be pretty good. Weight's a little off. A little heavy on one side. By 80 pounds or 100 pounds. Technically, I'm not allowed to go to standard until I hit 18,000, so I was just putting it on early. So once you get close to your airport, you can keep going further and further out until you find the code for it. I'm trying to find CYOW, but I might not be close enough yet. And once you're there, once you find it, you can ask for the runway and all that stuff, and ask for an approach. Peterborough, there we go. That's where I am. Nah, it's not there yet. That's hilarious. You can actually open a window in this. Newcastle. Oshawa. Right on. QNH. There we go. See, it was starting to flash at me because it should have been standard now. See, the built-in plane doesn't do that, but the real planes... as far as I know, the Fenix mod is pretty close, but it's not completely accurate. I've heard some pilots talk about the inaccuracies, but for the most part, this is, like, pretty good. So we would turn off the de-icing. Probably turn off our wing lights and stuff. They don't need to be on. Retractor lights. There we go. Some pretty neat things up here, though. So you can do all your tests. You actually want to simulate like a fire, you can actually turn off, like extinguish it and stuff, and turn off the engine. That's pretty cool. Oh, it's a company message. No, that's not it. There's a way to get the message that they sent. I think it's up here. Yeah, there it is. I swore there was a way to. Ah, there it is. That's a nice view, eh? This is where the head tracking is cool. You hang right down the road control. Airport. I wish this was alphabetical. Like, the person who did this clearly doesn't play the game that much or doesn't care enough about this feature. Because it's like, oh my god. If you played this game enough, you would get stuck in this situation and you would know how frustrating this just idiotic design is. Right? Because it's like, if you don't do the IFR clearance, you're basically just requesting to fly through the airspace, right? And because of that, it's like you have to descend on your own. You have to know when you got to come down. If you do this and you get an IFR clearance, ATC will tell you like, hey, descend to 5,000 feet, right? Turn heading, 1, 2, 3, etc. But when you're kind of doing this just free flow, like essentially we're stuck in like a VFR, right? It's a shame. Pendulum Falls. Oh my god. So flight following, when you ask for flight following, you're basically like, you're asking like ATC like, hey, keep an eye on me. Right? Make sure I don't die and disappear. But otherwise, we're just kind of flying on our own. So we'll zoom out our radar a bit so we have an idea. Yeah. So, we got a way to go, yeah. It's a pretty cool plane, though. Coming up on it. Like, where are they getting all these airports? Because, damn. starting to think that they're just using people's runways and stuff. Random farmer fields. Well. That's what I'm pretty good though. There was a while where the FedEx mod was pretty bad. It's getting about 90%, which isn't bad. I gotta admit it's a pretty cool experience if you are compared to that like it's just so cumbersome. I don't need it. It's like something that's not it's just nice to get close enough. It's like getting down enough. The one problem I have with the AI generally is that it's not great at altitude. It'll have you like 5,000 feet above where you need to be, and then the rest of it. But at least it gives me an idea. Still just make sure you have your AIs and stuff turned on. Because what you'll find is you'll start descending, and if the AI is in like full autopilot mode, no, hold on, I gotta bring up the landing gear and turn up the flaps and go full throttle and do turbo, right? And the take off go, and it's like, no, you do. So careful with the AI. I can't understand why the clouds in this game look like they're dust clouds. They don't look like clouds, they look like they're dirt balls. Those ones look cool. They've got the right amount of light, but these ones, they just look so dull. I don't know, that's how they look. It just seems weird. They look fake. It's like these ones. closer than this. I don't get it. It's so crazy. There's a way to do this, and they basically say, okay, at this line, if I want to be there, I take triple this, and that's the flight level I have to be at in order to reach. Like I have to start descending by that flight level. So this would, what is it, 4? So it would be 40 times 3 would be 12, so 120. So I have to be at 12,000 feet by the time I get to there at a 3-degree down, like slope, something like that. So to get down to there, geez, maybe they have the flight information. That sucks too, because it doesn't show me the flight time there. Well, let's just start getting down. To, let's say, a nice 8,000 feet. It's going to go pretty slow. And while that's doing this, I need to start the things. There it is. Oh my god. It's full stop runway. Runway 7. Different. So he wants me to go on runway 7. Okay. Shush. No, that's actually the runway I have queued up. Change it. So where are we going? Altimeter is 2982, so we'll put that down. 2. Should be standard until I get down to 18,000. This is bitching at me. So while I've got a minute, set phase. Weather prediction. No. Secondary. No. Airport. Maybe. Where's the data for this thing? Yeah. Now that he's given me the information from the airport, I should be able to plug it in. I just don't remember where it is. Oh, there it is. So 29.82. Just give me something to do while we're getting those. Temperature. Our wind is 92.5. Or for the wind, I mean, the temperature is. I don't have the Matar. Still taking a sweet time to get done. I don't know if he's going to make that, but we'll see. No, there's no way. It's so... Look at the altitude on this thing. It's so ridiculous. Let's just go nuts. There's no way I make that altitude. I have to do like the last 10,000 feet. Gonna hit way past our acceptable limits. There's no way this would be allowed. This would be like an emergency descent. There's no way I can make this. I mean, I'll try. I'll treat it like a mayday. 165, which is the slowest I can go. Yeah, there's no way, dude. Look at that vertical speed. It's not a big deal, but it's like, geez. And it's like without this visual reference, it's so hard to tell. Well, I'm gonna get the altitude down first, then. Mine's still going up. I am going to
Think rate. Think rate.
Probably want to be at around 3,000. Okay, so that's I just want to make sure before I turn my engine way at 3,000 feet that it's not going to kill me. Flaps, get set up and then we'll slow down. Seems to be turning on its own, so that's a good thing. So maybe it's automatically going to go around. That's fine. Good. Go next flaps. Going to be around 25 laps. There's already going to be speed like 165-ish from what I've heard for the 320. So the fact that it's going down to 140, it's crazy. Let's see how good it does with the. Let's see if it comes around. I think it's just going to this next point here on the map route. Unfortunately, I can't ask the airport for directions because the menu is stuck in this stupid road. State machine's broken on it. And it's not in a bad state. I don't know what the terminology would be. So, essentially, what I want to do is see if I get a direct to. No, I can't. So I have to like basically reprogram the flight computer at this point. No, that's not the ultimate. Dang, how do I get to this? Next waypoint. Will it let me do CYOW and then pick an airway for it? Tasting pepper. Now can I make the no, I can't make the ones. What can I do though? Don't. See, I'm trying to pick the arrival and stuff here. It doesn't it's not a waypoint. Like I need the actual arrival. The arrival. The problem is the arrival's gone now, right? And I don't know how to recover the flight computer from it. So track of 256. So we're at 252 right now. But that's not enough to make it. I need to catch the bus. actually should be visible at some point. See, the idea is that if you can aim the plane at the airport, the glide slope should show up. There it is over there. If I wanted to do it manually, but going by computer. As long as I'm at a reasonable altitude, because what I need to do is make up this. It's so much time I can use in this chart up. Unload. What this means. W. Charts. Runway 7. So I need to be, of course, 071. Well, that's if I want to do that. But 071 should be, if I tune in that DME, the ILS, 09.5, but I should be that. It should be 251. Okay, so I'm here now. I want to go straight. Actually, no, I want to go a little more this way. I want to come this way and go here. I've got to be at 3,000. And there's the waypoint. 6 nautical miles at 3,000 from AMOBI. So I need to go to AMOBI. Get to and then from AMOBI, I want to go to this. So let me do it. I don't know where AMOBI is. A movie. Unfortunately, it won't let me pick the destination, like the information. Let's see, maybe I have to clear some of this information. Yeah, like there's a discontinuity. It doesn't understand what this thing there. Okay, get rid of that. That's at the destination now. Let's just screw it up. W. Oh, there we go. ILS 07. gonna line me up. Dude, why did you terminate it? It's probably trying to do this stuff without a co-pilot. It's like... Really? Now, what do we lose? Oh my god, you can make me pick the airport, you asshole. I'm coming in whether you want me to or not. Full stop there. This is the same thing. Oh, now you'll give me the direction. Doofus. Okay. Okay. So that's the localizer. Yeah, so we're on the localizer and now I need the approach. I am not too slow. I'm way past the lights. Beep at me when I'm trying to fucking keep myself alive. You stupid computer. What kind of engineers program this shit? Yeah, I'm way past the line slope, so at this point the only thing I can do is just come in manually.
1,000.
So the nice thing about this is that it's doing
Sync rate. Sync rate.
it's doing the speed automatically, so
Sync rate.
basically it's just flying by hand. About 50 feet, you're supposed to pull back on the throttle.
Sync rate. Sync rate.
Pull up.
Yeah, that's a pretty
40.
Too low. Terrain.
30. 20. Retard. 10.
How can we survive that? What the hell, dude? We should be dead. It's not bad if you got time. That's the problem. the one downside to this mod is the calibration. You get the realistic experience, but it's a little too realistic for a long time. If it would have had the glide zone, it would have been problem. No problem with the whole itself, right? But I was way too high for my glass. Like, it kept me in so early. I couldn't get way more. It's just kind of damn it. That. Oh, oh, it's stuck in that stupid thing mode again. Technically, there we go. Turn off the engines, turn off the lights. Let the passengers get up. Oh my god, this whole time the seatbelt sign. You didn't have my landing lights on. Wow. Or taxi. Oh, man, that was that was pretty bad. Anyway, turn it off. Turn off the batteries. That's cold and dark. Oh, and he missed. Why did he put me so freaking far? Anyway, that was nasty. Yeah, I was late. I will wrap up by saying try the what's it called? This one. Yeah, this one. I haven't tried that one yet. Looks fun. Dark Stars, cool. But, not the CJ4. This one doesn't have auto throttle. Has autopilot, but not throttle, so you gotta manually control the speed. This is like a cruise ship. Right, this plane, this is it. This guy's a bunch of fun. It's got all the trimmings and the autopilot stuff. It's super fun. And that the computer system in this, it's all Garmin. Everything works. It's like a full implementation of Garmin. So if you're gonna do anything, play with this one. It's got checklists and everything. It's like the Fenix, but like made by like Asobo, like it's part of the game. So it's not like a third-party add-on. Although if you're looking to buy some planes, there's a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, who would want to spend that much money on? Maybe like this one. I was like, oh man, that looks cool. But then it's like, okay, it's an old plane and like $80. It's like worth more than the game. PMDG, I heard this is a pretty good plane. I hear lots of good things about PMDG, but I don't know if it's this plane or if it's one that's like an add-on, an external thing. Wow, they added liveries. The Garmin, this is pretty cool. The G1000. Although I think some of the things have it now. That one. I think there's even an is it is it a 117A? Yeah. So if you want to go like stealth bomber, I don't know what that would be like to fly. It doesn't seem like it's a very impressive thing. I mean, it can only go 1,700 kilometers. It doesn't even have that very or that much distance. Mach 0.9, 35 to 45,000 feet. That's about what the airliners will do. They'll do about 43,000. Interesting. Well, they got liveries and everything for it. For that one. Like, it looks cool, and the cockpit looks cool, but it'd be fun to take it for a spin. We want to when I'm bored. Here's what the system's like. That's a fun one. The Antonov. Oof. That's crazy. It's an old school. You got to convert the speeds and everything too. It's like all metric or yeah, it's all kilometers and stuff. GG.